My mother-in-law demanded my 9-year-old give up her MacBook as a gift, then said, "Maybe don't call me grandma." That's when my husband stood up and the whole room went silent as his parents' faces changed. I heard the tape at 1:17 in the morning. That specific sound, that short, sticky rip of Scotch tape being pulled from a roll, is not a sound you expect to hear coming from your child's bedroom in the middle of the night. It's not a sound that makes sense alongside darkness and quiet and a house that should be sleeping. I sat up in bed with my heart already moving faster than my brain. My husband Daniel was asleep beside me, one arm across his face, breathing slow. I stayed still for a second, listening. The tape sound again, then paper crinkling, soft and deliberate, the way someone tries to be quiet when they are doing something they know they shouldn't. I was out of bed before I finished the thought. The hallway was dim, just the pale glow of the nightlight in the outlet by the bathroom. Lily's door was cracked open an inch, and through that inch came a thin strip of light, warm, steady, like she'd turned on the small desk lamp. I pushed the door open slowly. My daughter was on the floor, 9 years old, cross-legged on the carpet, surrounded by wrapping paper and ribbon and a roll of tape stuck to her fingers. In front of her was her MacBook Air, not the box. The actual laptop she had kissed 3 times when we gave it to her 6 weeks ago. The one she had carried to the kitchen table every single evening since to work on her little video projects. The one she had named, and yes, she named it, after her favorite filmmaker. She was wrapping it, carefully, neatly, the way she wrapped gifts for friends' birthday parties. Like it was a present, like she was giving it away. "Lily," I said, and my voice came out softer than I expected, because something in me already knew. Before she answered, before she cried, before she said the name, something in me already knew who had put this idea in my child's head. She froze, looked up at me with eyes that were red and wet and terrified, and then she told me what my mother-in-law had said to her. "My name is Jessica Harmon. I am 37 years old. I work as a project manager for a mid-sized logistics company in Portland, and I have been married to Daniel Harmon for 11 years. We live in a 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood with a dog named Peanut, who is deeply confused about his role in the family, and a daughter named Lily, who has known exactly what her role is since she was approximately 4 years old. Filmmaker, storyteller, the kid who notices everything and writes it down. Lily has been making videos since before she had real equipment. She started on an old iPad, filming the dog from dramatic low angles, narrating nature documentaries about our backyard in a voice that was somehow both entirely 9 years old and completely professional. She kept a notebook of shot ideas. She watched YouTube tutorials about lighting and sound and color grading with the focus of someone studying for a licensing exam. When her birthday came, Daniel and I had been saving quietly for 3 months. We bought the MacBook Air. Not the cheapest option, not the flashiest, the one that made sense for editing software, for the creative work she was already doing. We wrapped it, we set it in front of her, and we watched her open it. She stopped breathing for a second. Then she made a sound I will carry with me for the rest of my life. This short, overwhelmed laugh that cracked into a sob. She put her face in both hands, and then immediately looked back up at the screen like she was afraid it had disappeared. "Is it real?" she asked. "It's real," Daniel said. She threw herself at both of us with enough force to knock Daniel backward off the couch. That was 6 weeks ago. Now she was on the floor at 1:17 in the morning, wrapping it to give it away. I need to tell you about Patricia before I can tell you the rest. Patricia is Daniel's mother. She is 64 years old. She keeps her home immaculate. She volunteers at her church on Tuesdays, and she has a smile that sits on her face at exactly the right angle at all times. Warm enough to seem genuine, controlled enough to mean nothing. I noticed the control before I noticed the warmth. I was just too young and too in love to trust my own instincts. The first real crack appeared 2 years into our marriage, when Daniel mentioned, casually, with the practiced casualness of someone who has processed a thing and decided it doesn't bother him, that he had paid for his own college education while his younger sister Carolyn's tuition was fully covered by their parents. They said she needed it more, he told me. "Did she?" He lifted one shoulder. "She was struggling." "And you weren't struggling?" He laughed, but not with humor. "I was fine." That was the template. Daniel was always fine. Daniel was the capable one, the stable one, the son who would figure it out. Carolyn was sensitive. Carolyn was still finding her way. Carolyn needed support. What Patricia and George called support for Carolyn, they called independence building for Daniel. And Daniel believed them. That was the hardest part to watch. He believed, genuinely, that being excluded from help was a compliment, that being drained of resources was a form of respect. Carolyn grew up and married a man named Todd, and they had a son named Brody, and Brody became the center of a universe that Patricia and George orbited eagerly. His activities, his needs, his disappointments, all of it treated with an urgency that never extended to Lily. Patricia could tell you Brody's school schedule, his sports stats, his shoe size. She would occasionally need to be reminded of Lily's age and the money. For 6 years before the night I'm describing, our bank account had a quiet hole in it. $700 a month to Patricia and George for bills and essentials. $450 a month to Carolyn for rent help, always framed as temporary. $240 a month for Brody's travel baseball fees. $190 a month for the family phone plan Daniel had been covering since before Lily was born. Every time I raised it, Daniel had the same answer. They need help. It's not forever. I can handle it. And I, who loved my husband and understood the complicated architecture of a childhood that teaches you that love requires constant payment, let it go each time. Until the night Lily sat on her bedroom floor at 1:17 in the morning, wrapping her dream in scotch tape and ribbon because my mother-in-law had told her she had to. I crouched down on the carpet next to her. "Hey," I said softly. "Sweetheart, why are you wrapping your laptop?" She swallowed. Her throat bobbed. Her eyelashes were wet and dark. "I'm giving it to Brody," she whispered. I stayed very still. "For his birthday," she added. Like that made it better. Like a reason could make this make sense. Brody's birthday was the next day. We had been invited. We're supposed to bring a gift. Nothing major, something age-appropriate. The laptop was not the plan. The laptop was Lily's. "Honey," I said carefully, "do you want to give it to Brody?" She shook her head. Fast. Automatic. Then caught herself like she was ashamed of the answer. "It's not fair," she said. "What isn't fair?" Her lip trembled. "That I have it, and he doesn't. Grandma said it's not fair. She said I need to learn to share." A pause, then smaller. "She said a good granddaughter would share." I felt the sentence land in my chest like something physical. A good granddaughter. Kids do not invent that guilt. They are not born with the vocabulary for it. That sentence had been placed in my daughter's mouth by an adult who understood exactly how to use it, who knew that a 9-year-old girl who loves her grandmother will do almost anything to remain a good granddaughter. Did Grandma Patricia say anything else? I asked. Lily's eyes went to the carpet. She picked at a thread in the wrapping paper. "Lily," my voice was still gentle, barely. "I'm not angry with you. I just need to understand." She looked up, and the fear in her eyes made the hair on my arm stand up. "She said," Lily whispered, "that if I don't do it, maybe I shouldn't call her grandma anymore." I heard a creak in the hallway. Daniel's voice came from the doorway, thick with sleep. "Jess, what's—" He saw Lily on the floor, the wrapping paper, the laptop. "What's going on?" I stood up and turned to him, and I said it plainly, because some things don't need to be softened. "Your mother told Lily she had to give her laptop to Brody. She told her that if she didn't, she couldn't call her grandma anymore." Daniel stared at me. Then he looked at Lily. "That's what happened?" he asked. Lily nodded, barely, like the nod itself might cost her something. Daniel's jaw tightened. I watched something move through his face. Not surprise, exactly. More like a man watching a bill come due that he'd been postponing for years. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "Daniel," I started, because it was past 1 in the morning, and I didn't know what he was about to do. "No," he said, "just that. Quiet and final." He opened the phone and started a video call. It connected in under 30 seconds, which told me they hadn't been asleep. Patricia and George appeared on the screen in front of their dining room computer, the overhead light too bright, the angle slightly off. Patricia leaned forward with a smile that belonged to 11 o'clock in the morning, not 1:30 at night. George sat slightly behind her with his glasses on, blinking. They looked like people who had been waiting. "Daniel, honey," Patricia said, voice light. "It's so late." "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad." Daniel's voice was polite in a way that made my skin prickle. Controlled. "We need to talk about something." Patricia's eyebrows rose pleasantly. "Of course. Lily was wrapping her laptop just now. She said she's giving it to Brody." Patricia's face did something complicated. A flicker of something that was almost satisfaction, smoothed over instantly with sweet concern. "Oh, isn't that generous of her?" "Mom," Daniel's voice dropped half a register. "Did you tell her she had to do that?" A pause. Less than a second. Then, "Yes," Patricia said, as if it were obvious, as if the question itself was a little much. "Of course." Daniel's shoulders tightened. I saw it from across the room. "You know that laptop was bought for her editing work," he said. "It's not a toy." Patricia waved a hand. "Daniel, it's too much for a child her age. Brody doesn't have anything like that. It isn't fair." George nodded slowly beside her, the way he always nodded when Patricia said something she'd already decided. "It was a birthday gift," Daniel said. "Chosen for her specifically. And Brody's birthday is tomorrow," Patricia said, voice firming now, the sweetness thinning at the edges. "He would appreciate it. He would use it well." Lily made a small sound from the floor. I reached over and put my hand on her shoulder. She leaned into it without looking up. Daniel's voice went quieter. "Did you tell Lily she couldn't call you Grandma if she didn't give it up?" Patricia's smile returned, but it wasn't warm this time. It was a different instrument. "I told her," she said slowly, "that if she wants to be a part of this family, she needs to learn what it means to share." "That's not what I asked," Daniel said. Patricia's chin lifted slightly. "If she wants to be my granddaughter," she said, "she needs to behave like one." And that was it. That was the sentence that ended 11 years of careful management. 11 years of Daniel absorbing, deflecting, choosing peace over honesty because peace felt like the responsible choice. Daniel pushed his chair back from the desk and stood up. On the small screen, Patricia blinked. George sat up straighter. I don't think either of them had seen Daniel standing before. Not like this. Not where they could feel the weight of it through a camera. His voice was quiet, but it was not small. "If you want to be Grace's grandmother," he said, "then you need to behave like one." Patricia opened her mouth. "No," Daniel said, and the word landed like a key turning in a lock. "You do not use love as leverage against a child. You do not threaten her relationship with her grandmother to get what you want. You do not make her responsible for the feelings of adults who should know better." Patricia's face drained. George's mouth opened, then closed. "We're done," Daniel said. He ended the call. He stood there looking at his phone like he couldn't quite believe his own thumb. Then he crossed the room and knelt down in front of Lily and took her hands and said, in a voice that I will never forget as long as I live, "You are not giving your laptop to Brody. Do you understand me?" Lily looked at him with enormous, wet eyes. "But Grandma said—" "I don't care what Grandma said." He said it simply, not cruelly, not with rage, just as a fact, clean and final and true. "You do not give up something that matters to you to make adults happy. That is not what love is. That is not what family is." Lily's breath came out in a long, shaky exhale, like she'd been holding her lungs tight for hours. Daniel looked up at me. "We're not going tomorrow," he said. I nodded. He picked up his phone and typed a short message, sent it before I could read it, but I knew what it said. "We won't be coming." Later, after Lily was finally asleep, Daniel sat at the kitchen table with his laptop open and his face carrying 10 years of tiredness all at once. I made tea. I sat beside him. He pulled up his bank account and started scrolling without speaking. I watched him read through a year of transactions the way you read through evidence, with recognition, with the slow, sick feeling of understanding something you've been carefully not understanding for a long time. "I've been paying them for 6 years, he said finally. "I know. I kept telling myself it was temporary." He made a sound that wasn't quite a laugh, that Carolyn would get on her feet, that mom and dad just needed a few more months, he stopped, that they'd appreciate it, maybe. He stared at the screen. Then he started canceling. $700 to Patricia and George, gone. $450 to Carolyn, gone. $240 for Brody's baseball fees, gone. $190 for the family phone plan, gone. $1,580 a month. He removed his card from 4 different accounts, each click quieter than the last, until the only sound was Peanut shifting in his dog bed in the corner. Daniel closed the laptop. "I'm done," he said. "I'm done paying people to hurt my kid." I took his hand. "Good," I said. Brody's birthday party happened without us. I know this because the next morning, my phone started vibrating like something was wrong with it. Carolyn had posted. It was one of those long social media paragraphs. No paragraph breaks, 300 words of emotion with no facts. About how Daniel had thrown a tantrum and cut off the whole family right before her son's special day. About how we had chosen to make everything about us. About how Lily had refused to do something kind for her cousin, Lily, my 9-year-old daughter, named and blamed in a public post. My hands went cold. If you have to use a child's name to win an argument, you have already lost. But the people you're trying to convince don't know that yet. Patricia had commented, "We didn't raise him to be like this." George had written something about being abandoned. A chorus of family members and people I'd never met offered sad face reactions and carefully worded sympathy. A few asked what had happened. Carolyn answered with more feeling and fewer facts. Daniel stood behind me reading over my shoulder. He went very still. Then his phone rang. It was his cousin Renee, calling from a number I recognized. "Dan," she said, "I was at the party yesterday." Daniel put her on speaker. "Lucas had a full breakdown," Renee said. "A real one. Screaming, crying, throwing things. Because Lily's laptop didn't show up. He had expected it. When it wasn't there, he lost it completely. Carolyn spent the whole party managing the fallout." I let that sit for a second. "So the birthday wasn't ruined by us?" I said. "No," Renee said quietly. "It was ruined by a 10-year-old who had been told a specific thing was coming, and then it didn't. And Carolyn is leaving that part completely out." When we hung up, Daniel looked at Carolyn's post again. He scrolled to the bottom. She had written, in plain text, that Daniel had never helped them. Not once. Not financially. Not in any way. That he had never lifted a finger for the family. Daniel read it twice. The insults hadn't landed hard. The manipulation hadn't landed hard. Even the attack on Lily had made him angry more than wounded. But the erasure, 6 years of transfers, of just this once, of course I'll help, Mom, wiped out in one sentence by someone who was counting on nobody asking for proof. I watched him process it. His jaw was tight, but his hands were still. He wasn't going to explode. That wasn't who he was. He was going to do something more effective than exploding. "I'm replying," he said. "Okay," I said. He typed slowly, not in anger, in the specific calm of someone who has stopped protecting people who never protected him. He wrote what had happened with Lily and the laptop. He wrote what Patricia had said to our daughter about Grandma. He wrote every number. $700, $450, $240, $190, $1,580 a month for 6 years. I have receipts. He didn't post screenshots. He didn't need to. That last sentence, "I have receipts," was its own kind of proof. It was the kind of statement that only lands hard if it's true, and everyone reading it knew it. He posted it and put his phone face down on the table. The comments changed. Not all at once. Not dramatically. But I watched it happen in real time as I stood at the kitchen counter pretending to be interested in my tea. Wait, she threatened a 9-year-old? She said she couldn't call her grandma if she didn't give up her laptop? He's been paying $1,180 a month and she said he never helped? People started doing math. Math is a bad day for liars. Relatives who had been nodding along with Carolyn went quiet. A few messaged Daniel privately to say they hadn't known the full picture. 2 commented publicly that what Patricia had done to Lily was wrong, that you don't weaponize a child's love, that you don't make a 9-year-old earn her grandmother's name. Carolyn stopped replying. Patricia and George disappeared from the thread entirely, and the silence that followed felt different from every silence before it. Not tense, not fragile, not the silence of something being held together by everyone's careful behavior, just quiet. The regular, unremarkable quiet of a house where nothing terrible is about to happen. That might have been the end of it, except that Patricia wasn't finished. 3 days after the post, I got a call from Dr. Sarah Weld, the licensed family therapist we'd been seeing every few months for the last 2 years. Not for anything urgent, just maintenance, the kind of regular check-in that is smarter than waiting for a crisis. She had a calm voice and 14 years of practice, and the particular skill of asking questions that sound gentle and land like surgery. I'd called her the morning after Lily's late-night wrapping session because I wanted a professional's perspective on what to say to a child who has been told her grandmother's love is conditional. This is emotional coercion. conversation, Dr. Weld said plainly during our call. What was described to Lily is a conditional love threat. You tell a child that a relationship they depend on will be revoked unless they comply. It's manipulative, and in children, the effects can persist. Difficulty trusting relationships, hypervigilance around people they love, an internal belief that affection requires performance. I wrote that down. What do I tell her? I asked. Tell her the truth in age-appropriate language, that what was said to her was wrong, that she doesn't earn love by giving things away, that real family relationships don't come with price tags. Then Dr. Weld added something that I think about often. The most important thing you can do for Lily right now is make sure she sees that the adults in her life will protect her from that kind of manipulation. Children don't need perfect families. They need to know someone is paying attention. A week after the posts, Patricia called Daniel. I heard his side of the conversation from the kitchen. His voice stayed level, but I could hear him choosing each sentence carefully, the way you carry a full glass. He hung up and told me what she'd said. She wanted to move forward. She understood now. They had overreacted. She wanted things to go back to the way they were. Go back to the way they were, which was, to be precise, our money flowing to them every month, Lily being an afterthought, Patricia maintaining access to our daughter without accountability. What did you tell her? I asked. I told her we'd talk in person, Daniel said. Once. They came on a Saturday morning, all three of them, Patricia, George, and Carolyn, which I found interesting because Patricia had called alone and somehow arrived with reinforcements. Patricia was holding a cake in a grocery store container with a gold sticker on the lid, a peace treaty pastry. She held it out at the door like a passport. We just want to talk, she said, voice soft and church-ready. We want to move forward. Daniel nodded them inside. We sat at the kitchen table. I set the cake aside. Nobody mentioned it again. Patricia started with the word family approximately 4 times in the first 2 minutes. George nodded at intervals. Carolyn looked at her hands. Then Patricia said it. We should go back to how things were, Michael. She used the wrong name. She called my husband Michael. I don't think she noticed. Daniel noticed. I saw it in the way his eyes went briefly still. He leaned forward. There is no going back, he said. That's not the offer. Patricia's expression shifted. Then what is the offer? She asked, voice tightening. The offer is this, Daniel said. No money. None. Not a transfer. Not a favor. Not a borrowed card. You apologize to Lily, in person, in language she can understand, for what you said to her. Visits happen with us present. No private conversations with her. No trips alone. No whispered anything. And if I hear one more comment about what she should give up, what she should share, what she needs to do to be a good granddaughter, you don't see her at all. Patricia stared at him. George was very still. Carolyn looked up for the first time. You've changed, Patricia said. There was something almost accusatory in it, like change was a betrayal. Yes, Daniel said. I have. Patricia looked at the cake on the counter like she was considering trying one more time. Then she didn't. They left. No agreement signed. No warm goodbye. Just 3 people filing back out the front door with less confidence than they'd walked in with. When the door closed, Daniel pressed both hands flat on the kitchen table and took a long, slow breath. I put my hand between his shoulder blades. You okay? Yeah, he said. Then, yeah, I really am. 7 months later, without 1,580 leaving our account every month, our financial situation didn't transform overnight. We didn't buy a vacation home or retire early. What we did was breathe. We took Lily to the Oregon coast for a long weekend in February. Nothing extravagant. A rental cabin, seafood, a morning walk on the beach where the wind was so cold it made her laugh. She filmed the whole trip on her MacBook, narrating the seagulls like a nature documentary, interviewing Daniel and me and Peanut with the seriousness of a working professional. She entered a short video she made about the dog into a local youth film contest in March. She placed second. She cried. The good kind. Patricia and George see Lily twice a month now. Always at our house. Always with us in the room. No private conversations, no side comments, no tests. And the strange thing is, the genuinely strange thing, Lily seems more comfortable around them now, not less. She doesn't brace herself when Patricia walks in. She doesn't study the room for warning signs. Because she knows we're watching. She knows we're paying attention. And kids, it turns out, don't need perfect grandparents. They need to know that someone who loves them is standing close enough to catch them if it goes wrong. Dr. Weld told me that. I wrote it down. Carolyn and Daniel haven't spoken. Not really. She sent a brief text in April. No apology, just a feeler. And Daniel replied politely and left it at that. The money is gone, and without it, a relationship that was mostly structured around access to Daniel's bank account has very little framework left to stand on. Brody is still playing baseball. I don't know who's paying for it. I genuinely don't care. Lily is still making videos. She's discovered color grading now, which means she will talk about it to anyone who makes eye contact with her for longer than 3 seconds. She has opinions about aspect ratios that I don't fully understand, but deeply respect. A few weeks ago, she showed me a short film she had made about our house. It was 5 minutes long. She had filmed every room, the kitchen, the dog's corner, the backyard with the oak tree, Daniel reading on the couch, and set it to music, and narrated it in her earnest, careful voice. Near the end, she filmed her desk. The MacBook sat in the center of it, open, screen glowing. This is mine, she narrated. My dad and mom gave it to me because they know what I want to do with my life, and nobody took it away. She paused on that shot for a long beat. Just the laptop, just the light. Then she cut to the window and the yard and the oak tree outside moving in the wind. I watched it 3 times. The 3rd time, I cried. Not because it was sad, because it was the opposite of sad. Because Because my daughter, 9 years old, small and fierce and paying attention to everything, had named her own belonging without anyone's permission and put it on camera and kept it. She's safe now. That's all that mattered.